actually doing as we live in this present day. During the sixth chapter, book of Ephesians, and about children, we have the dedication of children this morning. And children have a very special spot in the Lord's heart, don't you think? Jesus loved the little children. Some of the little children that come into him and did them not right. He wanted them to know him. He wanted them to respond to him. And others we need to do the same. But in chapter 6, verse 1, it says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes obeying my parents was not an easy thing for me to do. Sometimes I got mixed up in the signals I was getting and went in the wrong direction and had to have corrective measures applied to my direction finder. And I'm thankful that I had parents that loved me enough to give me these applications of direction finder. Because God is the only way, and they're trying to do this. And I thought, my dad didn't go to church. But he's a good man, an honest man, an upright man, with a fantastic reputation for being that. He just didn't go to church. In his later days, I want you to know, there's a guy bragged about this, and here's the prayer. I prayed about him, said it, and he said, Lawrence, you're a good man. Dad looked at him and says, the only thing good about me is the Lord puts in you. And young, that's an absolute truth. And we need to make sure that we share that with other people, because the best I can do, I'm not good. But obey your parents in the Lord. Now that segment right there, in the Lord. Does that mean that you have an option to obey it if you don't think it's in the Lord? You need to go back and ask yourself a question. God made the parents, made you young. Right? Supposed to listen. Right? And they are supposed to. Now, if they don't, they're accountable. How you respond to them is you accountable. So a child needs to give respect to his parents. I had a young lady come to me one time and her daddy didn't want her to get baptized. What do you tell a young that wants to be baptized and daddy don't want him to be baptized? Is that in the Lord? Well, it seems to me like that would be contrary to being in the Lord. It is your daddy. How do you advise somebody like that? Sometimes it's hard. How do you give respect to somebody that doesn't want you to follow the dictates of the Lord? And my advice was, as soon as she's old enough to make that decision on her own, that she go ahead and get baptized. Because youngins, until they are old enough to exercise that ability, they are to be subject to their own parents, I think. Now, if their parents are beating on them, abusing them, let me tell you a little secret. Let's go in the house, take hold of whoever it is that's doing that, and pray over their life out of that child. But I'm all for making sure that somebody would abuse a child. I saw an excerpt over here, I believe it was in Buckingham County. They arrested a man for murdering his 2-month-old child, for abusing his 2-month-old child. The other, let me tell you a little secret. I don't know what kind of punishment or something like that deserves. Do you? I know what is my flesh. I thought you wish he was in eternity. In my flesh. The other guy can turn it over to the Lord because he's got to do it tonight. You picture this little lady born 2 months old. You picture anybody hurting a child like that. Doesn't make any sense to me, but I believe it all my heart in the Lord. As far as is possible, without transgression, God's direct command. That girl could wait for a little while to be baptized, and she didn't get baptized, and the Lord turned up, she still went to heaven. But I have respect for Dad. Live with it until is about the best advice I can give. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment. What does the rest of that commandment say? That thy days may be long upon the earth. And I want to say something. God honors people that keep his word. If they honor their father and their mother, I believe he has a longer life in store for them. I believe we can shorten our days upon this earth by the way we live, even as a child. I I believe we give length in the days on this earth that we're going to live, even as a child. And even as adults, I believe we as adults can shorten the days and years that we have on this earth by the way we live. I honestly believe that there are more than a few people. I got pretty well back it up. Then the church in Corinthians, in the church in Corinth, they were having the Lord's Supper. And having the Lord's Supper, you know, what do we do when we have the Lord's Supper? We have supper together and we eat the wafer and drink the wine. Right? Well, they were having a party. They had pushed Jesus completely out. They were just having a party. They had no thought whatsoever to the spiritual implication of what they were doing. And they were partaking of the Lord's Supper unworthily. Notice when you take that little wafer, you better make sure that you are serious about Jesus. When you take that little cup, you better make sure that you are serious about the way you're living for Jesus. Because if you partake of it unworthily, the Scripture says that some of them slept, which is a way of saying that some of them have died an early death. Now, be careful. Not that play games like that. Be very serious about how we live and how we are, and we need to be serious about it also. And it may be well with thee, but I may have lived longer here. And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. Go back to the young lady one of those who was baptized, and then he said, no. Why not? Phyllis and I had a long discussion when we were raising our youngest. When they were little, I told them no, or I told them stop. I expected it to be done immediately. If they're walking toward the street, I say stop. I expect them to stop. Phyllis kept telling me, he said, you need to explain why. I said, Phyllis, when they're old enough for an explanation, we're trying to give them an explanation. And as they got older, I did try. You asked her, I honestly tried. When I told them no, that they had a reason, no. And it was a plausible reason. A reason that makes sense. You know, just because I said so doesn't work with teenagers all the time, does it? If you raise teenagers, does it work with teenagers? No, just no. Because I said so. It don't work real good. That doesn't work real good with younger than teenagers. That doesn't work real good for toddlers, quite honestly. They want yes, yes, and yes again. But you have to tell them no. When we get old enough to understand, no. God did that with us. There's some things he says, thou shalt not. Did he not? Didn't tell us why. He just says, thou shalt not. And then in the Scriptures, you want to find out why thou shalt not. He wants us to live holy. He wants us to live righteous. He wants us to live upright. That's the reason thou shalt not. Is in the Ten Commandments. He says, provoke not your children to wrath. Telling the child one thing and expecting something different out of it confuses the child and will cause that child to be aggravated and mad at you. If they don't know what you're expecting, how can it deliver? How many youngsters are living in that sort of expectation in their home? They don't know what's going to happen. They do the best they can to appease dad, and the first thing they find is dad back dancing or something like that. That's not the way children are supposed to be raised. Listen, youngsters, don't provoke them, don't give them reason to have that right. Does that mean don't tell them no? Now, some folks will come around and say, well, just give them everything they want. No, young, if you love that child, you're going to tell it once in a while for plain and simple reasons. Whatever it is going to hurt them. If it's going to hurt them, you are required to tell them no. And that means hurt them spiritually, or physically, or psychologically. Sometimes you tell a young man, you can't go to this place. Why? Because of what it will do to you. But we're just going to have some fun. You may think it's fun, but what ends up happening is you get exposed to something. But honestly, there's been more than a few boys that spent time in the penitentiary because they went with one of their buddies, and their buddies done something, and because they were with them, they got punished just like their buddies. And you know that the child, you really would never have done something like that, but he's convicted and sent to prison because somebody made him go out and hang for the wrong crime. Did your parents ever tell you when you hang around that one? Huh? the one we wanted to have ready. That's the one we wanted to be with. Mom and Dad says, don't want you doing that. The youngest, I think, with proper information, you don't have to put the young down. You just need to make sure that your child understands, listen, they're going to get in trouble. And when they get in trouble, I don't want you there. That's simple enough, isn't it? But let me say right now, you can tell a lot of times to their friends what the hell do it. If their friend's drinking, you want your child out to somebody's drinking? No. Especially if they're driving. And I want you to run out. Oh, but I'll be the one driving, Pop. Yeah, you might be, but guess what? If you did stop, you have an open container in your vehicle, you're in bad trouble. Even if you hadn't taken off one sip, you're in bad trouble. You're the driver. You're responsible. And so it's important not to. But don't ask them for one thing and then expect something else. Make sure they know what you expect from them. Looking for it, not that. Bring them up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. That's what Monica said she would do this morning. Bring that lady up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. Okay, we've got a servant. What's a servant? At the time the Bible was written, most of these servants were slaves. And notice we have had slavery in the human race for as long as we've had the human race. I know there's all kinds of big talk about slavery this and slavery that. And I know even in America especially, we have a problem. That the black people resist having come from being descendants of slaves, and it's all the white honky's fault. Well, it may be our fault. But I got news for you. Now before my time, I have never owned anybody. Now, I will acknowledge this. I was a supervisor, which meant I had people under my direct command. Were they my servants? No. They were my employees. And my responsibility was to get out of my employees what the company asked from my employees. But they were not slaves. They had the right to say no. And it's important to remember that. But servants be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh. Now they may be over you in the flesh, but they are not superior to you in the spirit. They need to remember that, as you need to remember that. Because youngers, if you feel dominated by somebody, you have a tendency to feel kind of a resentment for them. God don't want us to resent one another. He wants us to love one another. And if you have this attitude that they're my slave, my servant, then you are out to pressure or push and make them resent you. That's a hard thing to be a Christian boss. Isn't it? I'm sure I've got a reputation among most of my former employees that I was a good boss. I like that. That I was fair. I've even got one guy that I wrote up, big time. And it's not been that long ago. He says, I know I did it. And he told me, he said, he's always fair. Because I told him before I did it, if you do what you're fixing to do, I will rise you up. I did what I said I would do. He at least respects me for that. And he's a good guy. He's a fantastic guy. I love working with him. He's one of these guys that you just enjoy being around. Because he's a cut. But anyway, that being said, be obedient, serve be obedient to them that are masters for the flesh, with fear and trembling and singleness of your heart. And get this, as unto Christ. Serve your boss like you serve Jesus. True. That'd be a bad place for a lot of bosses to be. Because how many of us serve Jesus like we ought to? You think about that just for a second. Serve your boss, man, like you serve Jesus. Serve your employer like you serve Jesus. Well, I'm supposed to get everything that I can from my employer. I'm supposed to look for every hour that I can. That's not what Scripture says, is it? The honest says work. The honest says practice way. A Christian ought to be willing to take all he gives without resent, because it's as unto Christ. I'm living like a Christian. I'm not stealing. You steal time. You steal money. You steal a lot of things, can't you? Notice, is it right to steal anything? It's not. And we're not supposed to. You don't steal. I don't think you can steal from Jesus. Because He gives you. He gave you everything He had. You know that? Everything that He had, He gave to you. Even up to and including His own life blood. He didn't have a place to lay His head down, did He? He gave up heaven to be in a place where He didn't have a place to lay His head. He gave up all the riches of heaven. For when it come time to pay His taxes, He had to tell Peter to go get the fish and get the corn and pay the taxes. He gave up everything for us. And those we need to remember that. Not without service. I know you've seen somebody that when they're looking the boss in the eyes, they, oh yeah, you're the best thing going on, whatever you say. And then, knife into the back, this is a second return. So it's not just with eye service, but in reality, do the job that you hire them to do. Whatever it might, plumber, do the best plumber you can. I don't know, but those used to work like in the bread bag, working bread. She's supposed to do the best she could, but she was trying to run her fingers through some of the machinery that time. They don't want that. They want you to produce bread. Not flesh, but bread. But you know, you give them the best you got. It's important we do that. Not without service of men believers, but as the servants of who? Of Christ. You're a Christian. Your reputation as a Christian is on the line. If they see you as a deadbeat, are they going to see you as a Christian? If they see you as a lazy bum, are they going to see you, oh, it's a Christian lazy bum? No, I don't think so. Christ taught that you go to work, and what you earn with your hands, you have to help other people with. Isn't that what He says in His Word? Yes, it is. And we need to do that. Now, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will, doing service as to the Lord and not to men. Not like you're doing it for American Prayer. Not like you're doing it for Butler, Fun, and Eden. Not like you're doing it for any of these other corporations. Not like you're doing it for Baxter. Not like you're doing it for any of these places that you work. You're doing it as unto the Lord. And it counts what you show the world. It counts what you show your fellow employees, don't it? It counts what you show your boss. It counts what you find going on in your everyday life in the workplace. Those in the workplace, well, that's probably one of the funniest places to really get through to be a Christian. Because everybody's gathered around the water cooler and they don't tell jokes. It's just unacceptable for a child of God to listen to. But everybody's around the water cooler. And so what are you going to do? Go around the water, going back to your work spot and not listen to them. The important, folks, that you maintain a right attitude about all things and do it like God would have you to do. It says, with good will, doing service to the Lord, and not to men, knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free. Your work, not the honor. And the honor of David, done it for 30 years. God bless him to be able to work for 30 years. And I want you to know something today. God's still taking care of me because even that is really work for you. I want you to know that God's good with me. And it's because of it. And He has honored me. I did my best to give all those years of faithful service to the employer that I had. I love doing it. Someone said there's something wrong with me, I like to work. I'm going to tell you a secret. God created man to work. We talk about going to heaven. I think there's going to be work to live in heaven. And we want to grin the whole time we do it. Because it's to be a pleasure for us to be able to do it. Knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free, doesn't matter your condition here, whether you're a slave or whether you're a free person, whether you're independent or dependent upon a job. Let me tell you right now, God's got you. And you can count on that. Masters, it says, and you masters, do the same thing unto them, forbearing and threatening, knowing that your master also is in heaven. Neither is is a respect of persons with him. Just because you've got a position does not elevate you in the eyes of God. Oh, wait a minute. I've got a position, I've got a title. I'm son of God. In the eyes of man, does that make you something special in the eyes of God? Because he gave you a position? Because he gave you a title? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. A lot of people want to call a preacher better. You're not ready to call him a Brother Charles, a preacher Charles. Anytime, all the time. Every time you'll have this ring to it. Brother Charles, preacher Charles, we'll get right down Charles. Ring is a whole lot better than I do, because I'm not a brother. In the eyes of God, I'm on the same one you are. You know what thing that is? A needy human being. But they got all the way there. I need Jesus, just like you do. It says we need to remember that because our Master also in heaven, neither is respect the person living finally. My brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. How do you get strong in the Lord and the power of his might? Well, read the Word. Read the Word. Study the Word. Study to show yourself approved, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed. Is that in there? It is. And I will show we need to do that. I can do all things through Christ, who strengthens me. That's in there, isn't it? We need to hang on to that. And there's so many places where it tells us to be strong in the Lord. Remember, when adversity falls on us, our strength so many times slips away from us. Because with our eyes and with our ears, we hear all down, and we fail to respond in the Spirit. Be strong in the Lord. When Jesus was being tempted by the devil in the wilderness, what did he say to the devil? I rebuke you. Hey, this is Jesus, the Son of the living God, right? I mean, he had just been in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. And I would show he has been without food and sustenance for 40 days and 40 nights. Here comes the devil, and the devil offers him a way out. An easy way out. All you have to do is speak to these rocks, and they'll be bread. Well, the devil knew. This is Jesus, the Son of the living God. He's got power. He can do it. And he says, use your power for selfish reasons. You know, a lot of times we'll use our strength for selfish reasons and not for the right reasons. If we can promote us, we'll build ourselves up. But what did Jesus do? Jesus looks at the devil and says very plainly, very simply, it is written. You know what he said? Then he quotes Scripture. If you want to be strong in the Lord, commit Scripture to your mind, to your memory. Memorize as many verses as you can. Now, I've got a bunch of verses I've got memorized. Can I tell you where they are? What chapter, what verse, what book? I'll find it for you. Forgive me. But take them then too. Now, there's some that I can tell you. Like John 3:16, about that down there. One shall commit the word to your heart. Because all three of the instances that Jesus brought against the devil, I had to go and look up. Because I didn't remember having read them. Have I read them? Yes, I read them. I read through them all the way through the Bible, more than once. I read every word. It's in my King James 1611 version of the Bible. More than once. And guess what? I still go back and read some of the stuff, and I say, I don't think I've ever read that before. I don't remember reading this. Young we need to be familiar enough with our word. When we read it again, that was now read it before. And then we can go on there. But don't show he says that. He said to the devil, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone. But Jesus had never food, didn't he? His body was famished. His body was weak. He needed food. But he would not use his power to satisfy himself. It is written. What happened? The angels come and ministered to Jesus. I wonder what kind of meal Jesus had then. I don't think it was bread made out of rocks. I guarantee it was bread that came out of the ovens of heaven. Because when the angels ministered to him, I believe they brought food. Manna from on high to feed the nurture. You talk about nurturing. Food from heaven is a nurturing food. You'll be strong if you eat that food. It says that, finally, my brother, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Not your might, but his might. You know, if you ever come to think of yourself as able, you miss the first step. I told you every day I hurt my back, I fell up the steps. I missed it. Caught my toe on it. Don't know what it was. But I want you to know something. I missed the step, and it hurt. I want you to know, guys, do not ever come to the point that you think that you've achieved what God has. You'll never reach perfection. You'll never be perfect like Jesus. That's the reason we have got to remember our need of Jesus. Because when it comes time to stand before God in my judgment, I don't want any of these shoulders upon. I want to be hid behind Jesus completely. And the only way to do that is to remember that I need to be hid behind Jesus at all times. It's what Jesus did in one thing. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Verse number 11. Put on the whole armor of God. The whole armor. Now, armor was not easy to wear. You reckon? How'd you like to have had a helmet made out of metal or whatever it was pulled out over your ears? How would you like to have a breastplate made out of metal or hides or something to encompass your torso? You know, the armor that the soldier carried was not carried for comfort. It was carried for protection. It was carried for warfare. I want you to know right now, our soldiers, what they have to do with their training is they have to carry a pack. And in that pack, they have their extra ammo. They have their food while they're out on the field. They have probably a poncho, World War II. They had a little shovel because they had the big foxholes every time. They had everything they needed, and they carried it on their backs. Now the Roman soldier didn't have nearly as much stuff going with them as our soldiers did. Notice what they had was the weapons, basically. But they also had the sandals. They had their breastplates. They had their helmets. They had the belt that all these things were hanging on to. And so when we get to verse 11, it says, put on how much of this armor? Just the parts you need for today. Is that what it says? How many times do you and I go out to meet today thinking we're prepared for whatever and find out we don't have the part that we need? You know why? Because the devil watched us get dressed this morning, knows what we left off, so he knows where to come at us with. Listen, young ones, if you have the helmet of salvation, he's not going to come at you in the head. If you have your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel, he's not going to come at you. You don't have that belt, but you have those extra. Listen, we have a short sword and probably some little knife or something in that belt. They had what they were going to beat up on the enemy with. If you don't take your weapons with you, will you be able to beat up on the enemy with them? What about your shield? Oh, if you forgot your shield, well, listen, if you as a Roman soldier forgot your shield, you not only hurt yourself, but you hurt everybody else in the regiment. Because the Romans were trained to fasten their shields together and make a wall that the enemy could not get to them from. They even covered it over the top so that the arrows could not come penetrating down from on top. But if one of them forgot his shield, what's going to happen? There's a big hole. If that big hole is there, what's the enemy going to do? The enemy's going to go through that hole. It says for us to put on the whole armor of God, all of it. How many days a week do we need to put our armor on? Every day. Notice we need to consciously realize and know that we need help in every one of these areas. Lord, would you help me to have that helmet of salvation on? Would you help me to remember who I am, what I am in you? Because I don't want the devil coming at me like that. Lord, would you help me have the shoes on that I need? You know, the Roman shoes, we'll get into these pictures later. These Roman shoes or sandals weren't just sandals. Most of us, we wore sandals like the Romans did, oh, they killed us. They had cleats in them. And let me tell you right now, like our football players have cleats, I want you to know they had cleats in them. A lot of times there's a piece of metal sticking out, and it just dug into the earth and held on. Because their toes would just be on top and slide back if they were push. But whenever they dug those cleats in, those pieces of metal or whatever in, they could stand against the enemy. But they had to have a shoe on, didn't they? And they had to have them laced up. Nowadays people, our youngsters run around without the shoes laced up. My mom and dad would never let me go to school without tying my shoes. Would you ever let you go to school without tying your shoes? Hey, David, they've got a pair of shoes I do like, called Crocs. You don't have to tie them. And then they got these other real neat looking shoes. They got a shoelace in them, but you don't have to tie them. I like them. As I got older, and it's harder to get down there at the time, I like them. The youngest, listen, when it comes to going to battle, you need to have the shoes that protect your feet. If your feet are out of sorts, the enemy will blow you over. Don't you right? Talk about it here. How many years ago was it you had trouble with that ankle for so long? It's been several years after. Yeah. But you wouldn't hear any stuff about resisting being rolled over as you are right now, even though the older, we're still comfortable because we don't have that limitation. Notice your feet moving forward. I've got gout. Hope you've never experienced gout. Because it hurts like crazy. And when it's hurting like crazy, you can't stand with your foot on the floor. You can't stand for your life to reach over and grab your toe and twist it either. But I want you to know, you'll holler in spite of yourself because it hurts that bad. But when you're hurting like that, can you stand against what's coming against you? Young as I have had the sheep, just the sheep, and I've moved it against my poor big bad toe, and I thought it was going to swing. I want you to know something like that keeps you from being able to function and deal with the things that come at you. That's the reason we need to have the full armor of God put upon us. The whole armor of God, that why? By the whole armor, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of your neighbor. That's all I want to say. Of your enemy. Now, he's an enemy, but he's called the devil. The devil is coming against you. Protect yourself. If you protect yourself, you protect those with you, around you. And we as Christians today need to understand that we need to protect one another. We need to stand together against what the devil is doing. The devil is after our children. We need to stand against him. The devil is after our marriages. We need to stand against them. The devil is against our churches. We need to stand. But listen, if some of us have gout and are laying around hollering with a gout his nose, where will we much help from? We need to put on the whole armor so we can be help to one another. And notice before we do that, put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to do what? To stand. Remember, that's not advancing, that's just standing. Put on the armor just so we can stand. Now, we need to advance, don't you think? We don't need to be still. We need to be advancing against the enemy. And I believe with all my heart, the Church of the Living God has the power to advance against the enemy. But I have watched and I have seen for the last 30 years, it seems like the devil has followed us to a standstill and we're not advancing. Are we winning souls? Are we educating our youngins in fear and admonition of the Lord? Are we showing them the reality of a God who's so loving and really, truly standing today? I think would be one of the best things we could do for our young people. One of the best things we could do for our fellow Christians is to stand. I've always looked at it like this, honest. You ever been trying to move something that's kind of up a little ways? I had to move a big vehicle. And it's just one row. We'd start. I didn't have anybody to stay up with. And I could push against it and it'd move forward 2 or 3 inches. But the very instant that I backed off, it'd roll back 2 or 3 inches and sometimes 5 or 6. And I finally figured something out. When you get it pushed forward those 2 or 3 inches, throw some under the tire and scotch it. Right? And then when you get in position, you push it another 2 or 3. You can make some advancement, but you got to scotch it. Youngers, we need a scotch in our spiritual world today. Because we're having a tough time advancing. But when we do advance, we don't want to back up. So we need a scotch. What that is our brothers and sisters praying for us and lifting us up. So, I'm going to do it. I'm supposed to be another time in the morning. Verse number 11. Verse number 12, we'll look at the reason for having the whole armor of God. Or wrestle not against what? Against what? What are you wrestling against tonight? Something I know. And that is powers and principalities and high places. That means political high places, yeah. That means governmental high places, yeah. It also means in the spiritual realm. We have an enemy. It does. And he's seeking to divide everyone that he possibly can. Think about a lion, though. You know what a lion does? A lion likes to pick up the stragglers. The ones that's not in the flock. The weakest one. The sickest one. The one that's coldest on the board. Those who need watch out for and protect. Even the sickest one. Even the weakest one. We need to come to the aid of their assistance. Because the devil would like to consider them. Questions, comments, and no share. Then all I can do is admonish you to sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing his mercy and his grace. In the mansions bright and blessed, he'll prepare us a place. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. Don't wait, start now.
I have a question
Question.
about the voting on